Very good morning to you. We're looking today for the first instalment, I think it'll be, of the Good Samaritan. We looked yesterday at the question that was asked by this lawyer. This lawyer, it was the sort of question he asked that would be asked of him, because he was the expert. He knew the law inside out. And if anyone came to him and said, "What should I do to inherit eternal life?" he would say exactly what he said to Jesus when Jesus said, "Well, how do you read the law? What do you see the law as saying?" And his answer was, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength, and with your mind, and your neighbour as yourself." This is in Luke 10, verse 27. And your neighbour as yourself. And Jesus said, "You've done, that's right, do this and you'll live." But this wasn't enough for the lawyer. He pursued it, and he asked, "And who is my neighbour? I know who God is, know how to love God, but who is my neighbour?" And Jesus told this story about the Good Samaritan, about the man, the Jew, who fell among thieves, and lost everything and was badly injured, and how two fellow Jews walked past him and didn't help him. So not only was Jesus saying that, I need to backtrack a bit and say, the point of the story in the end is to say that not just Jews were neighbours to this lawyer, but non-Jews. Jesus challenged his idea of who his neighbour was, but he also challenged his idea that as a Jew, most Jews were obeying this part of the commandments and loving their neighbour as themselves, because these two Jewish leaders did not. And the reason they did not help or even go and see if he was alive, this poor man who had been badly beaten and was lying half dead at the side of the road, the reason he didn't do that, they didn't do that was because of the law which said if you touched a dead body, you would be unclean for a certain period of time and not be able to carry on normal life. And that prohibition had led to those people who were more directly involved in the temple worship and the synagogue worshipping and the leading of the people, would avoid going anywhere near anyone who was near to death. And they left that up to other people because it would interfere with their work and their life if they touched a dead body. So the law, as in so many instances that Jesus challenged, the law had become so specifically itemized by the Jews that they wouldn't break it even for compassionate grounds. And this was their attitude to the Sabbath. They would not break it on behalf of a suffering human being, where they would break it on behalf of a suffering animal. And their thinking had gone a long way from the spirit of the law, because the law was meant to bring health and goodness and pleasure to people for their lives. The prohibition that said if you touch a dead body or an animal that has died, if you touch a dead body, you are unclean, was so that they would separate themselves from other people, so that if the person who had died of an infectious disease, say, they would not spread it to the other people in their group. It was a protective measure. It wasn't done to spoil their life. And how much have we seen this kind of attitude perpetuated during the lockdown? You know, the prohibition of meeting together, of travelling. How many people have said, "I don't care whether I don't care whether you think I shouldn't travel or not. For the well-being of others, I'm going to jolly well do it because that's what I want to do. And the people who said, I don't want to wear a mask going into this group, I hate wearing masks, I'm not going to do it. Instead of saying, well, this is what we're required to do for the protection of all, let's do it for the well-being of the whole of society. Putting themselves first rather than compassion for the other person. And Jesus is challenging this upstanding Jew, principally and first of all, with the need to love your neighbour, even when it inconveniences you. Because it does. If you stop and help somebody, you're going to be late for wherever you're going. Or you may not get there at all if you're on the way to somewhere and you stop and you help somebody. It's going to inconvenience you. I mean, much more so then because they didn't have mobile phones. At least, now if this situation arose, you could use your mobile phone and say, I'm sorry, I'm delayed. There's been an accident and I'm helping. But they couldn't do anything like that back then. But the Jews had so hemmed themselves in, and there are Jewish communities even today, many of them, who do not mix at all with non-Jews, let alone help them out if they see them in need. And this was Jesus was challenging them. They had hemmed themselves in. They could not see a need if it required them to. I mean, this was a Samaritan. This wasn't even a Gentile. This was a Samaritan, which was sort of half Jew. They didn't relate to Samaritans. They certainly didn't relate to Gentiles. And Jesus had to challenge this attitude. All his disciples were Jews, brought up with the same idea, that you didn't mix with non-Jews. You didn't mix with them. You certainly didn't think that God loved them enough to save them. Jesus had to work really hard to change ingrained attitudes in his society. Read this story today if you have a chance, and pray and ask the Lord to address your attitudes, to see where you would help someone else and where you would not, and why you would not, and how free you are to love your neighbour as yourself, and who is your neighbour. Have a great day. God bless you. See you tomorrow. Bye.